So sometimes we overlook behaviors. We'll say boys will be boys, or it's just a phase, or sometimes you'll hear, they'll grow out of it.
But that's a big misconception.
I'm Alexandra Lilly, and this is Donna Palmer. And in this video, we're going to talk about 3 behaviors you must not ignore.
That's right.
But before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you are notified anytime we release a new video on how to handle your child's challenging behaviors.
Alexandra and I, we are both parents. I've been a parent for the last 28 years, Alexandra for the last
16 years.
And we have been in the business of coaching parents and working with children for decades.
And along those lines, Donna, you came up with a pretty good quote, I must say.
Which is, behaviors that are unresolved inevitably evolves.
So let's dive into that a little more.
So before we get started, we would like to acknowledge that we know that all behaviors happen for a reason and a purpose. But for the purpose of this video, we want to focus on those behaviors that we as parents are not to ignore. Behavior number 1, temper tantrums.
So the definition of a temper tantrum would be an unpleasant, disruptive behavior.
Yes, it is.
And it doesn't really matter what age your child is, a temper tantrum is a temper tantrum.
Definitely.
Now, some parents, though, get confused on, meltdowns or temper tantrums.
Because they look the same. Yes. However, a tantrum is very different from a meltdown. A meltdown is when your child is really overwhelmed by a situation and they're frustrated and they in a helpless kind of mode. They become overwhelmed and they have an emotional outburst. Whereas a tantrum is when your child is angry about a situation and they are acting out based on that emotion that they are feeling.
All right, so our first sign of those tantrums are the terrible twos.
Yep.
Those are not fun.
We see it all the time. Yeah. Maybe it's our own kids, maybe we're in the store, our friends. It's everywhere. Terrible twos are just everywhere. But one of the things that we really want to pay close attention to is that even though they're going through a phase and we know it's the age and stage of development, we want to be mindful that we address those behaviors in the right way. And our goal is for our children to learn how to manage those big emotions appropriately. Because if we don't intervene, we don't redirect, we don't teach them how to handle those big emotions, guess what is going to happen? And you've experienced that with your own kids. They will have their outbursts.
Yes.
They will get what it is they wanted.
Yes.
And guess what? They're going to start to learn that when I behave this way or when I get myself into this big outburst, mom or dad or whoever it is, they're just going to let me have what I want. And from 2 years old to 5 to 10 to 12 to 16.
Yes.
And you can just imagine where that is leading. So the terrible twos must be addressed. Yes, it's a phase. They're going to get over it, but we have some work to do to help them to get over it.
Yeah, we can't just wait for them just to get over it.
Yeah. No, we need to do something.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, behavior number 2, lying. This one's a big one for me. This one was I had struggled with my child.
And it could also be a tricky one.
Yeah.
Right?
It was, yeah.
How old is your child now, Alexandra?
11.
And when did the lying start?
Probably a long time ago. But I didn't realize they were lies. I didn't realize that what he was saying, I just thought he just doesn't know.
Right. And that's true. There is that stage where your child might be young, like under 3 years old, and they would tell, we don't even want to call it lies, because at that stage they really don't know what is a lie and what is truth.
Right.
They just have no they're not at the cognitive stage where they can tell truth from false, right? So I guess, you keep thinking that phase was way longer than
Right. I was like, when is he going to know?
right. So then we move into the next phase, where kids are a little bit older. They have cognition. They have tasks that need to be done, chores, homework, a number of things, and they don't really want to do it. So, they might be telling some lies. You have some kids who are, they have low self-esteem, and they might want to, maybe some of that you might have experienced too.
Yeah, so sometimes where they tell you something, or they're telling people something that is not true because they're trying to make themselves look a certain way.
And one of the things I found is some kids tell lies to get attention.
Yes.
So I remember this little girl in our program. She would be sitting at the table, and she drops, I'm literally looking at her, she drops her pencil on the floor, and she goes, oopsie, it fell. Now, are we going to qualify that as a lie? Maybe not, but she's not telling the truth. She knew that she dropped the pencil on the floor, but then she goes, oopsie, it fell. And then what I had to do was to really, Mary, I don't think it fell. I think you dropped it. No, I didn't. I'm like, but I saw you drop it on the floor. Oh, okay, Teacher Donna. Yes, I dropped it. Right? So it may be something as innocent as telling something that is not truthful just to get the attention, but we still need to address the lies, because if we are not intercepting those lies and confronting those lies, then
we're going to be in big trouble, because as they get older, those lies become bigger and bigger.
Right. And they weave themselves into a web, and we can all attest that we know people who tell lies. We know when you tell one, you're going to tell another one to cover up this one. And really, when we think about that, that's not the kind of kids we want. We want kids who are honest, kids who has integrity. So we need to address lying. We must not ignore lying. It can be very, very detrimental to your child's development.
All right, so we're talking about all these behaviors that we shouldn't ignore, and you're probably wondering, how do we handle it? If you guys want us to do a video on how to handle these behaviors, let us know in the comments.
Behavior number 3, disrespect.
That one was tough. That one is still tough for me. But let's list some disrespectful behaviors. So we have name calling, rudeness, talking back, hitting, cursing, kicking, throwing things, damaging property. Gosh, the list can kind of go on.
Yes, it really can. And I think when it comes to disrespect, it's one of those behaviors that get misunderstood quite a lot. And that is why it spirals out of control, and only when it's at a point where it's out of control, then we start to recognize that it's disrespect.
Yes, because I didn't realize it was back talk or talking back until they got older.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, they're being very disrespectful now.
Right.
But
even rude.
Right, and even rude. Yeah, for sure.
So why didn't you step in when they were younger?
I think at the time I just thought this is them expressing their emotions. They're angry, they're frustrated, so it's kind of like you're guarding their emotions and allowing them to express it, but kind of bit me later on.
And think about your 2-year-old or 5-year-old, they get angry, and I've seen this firsthand where kids get angry. I had a 2-year-old who literally picked up a chair to throw it at me. So that is quite a bit of anger. So think about a 2-year-old picking up a chair to throw it at the teacher, you, the parent. Now imagine a 10-year-old with that same level of anger, or a 15-year-old at that same level of anger and not being able to express that anger appropriately.
Right.
Now throwing a chair or making a hole in the wall. You know, I remember one of my kids did that, punched a hole in the wall, then lied about it. You know, I mean, came up with some excuse how the hole got in the wall, but really he had punched a hole in the wall because he was angry.
Right.
So when your child is older and are expressing anger in a disrespectful manner, it is no longer something that you find easy to handle.
Right.
It becomes very, very difficult.
And sometimes we need to look at it as like, what if this was an outside person? What if this wasn't our child? What if someone was coming to us, shouting at us, cursing at us, throwing things at us? What would we call that?
We'll call it abuse.
Right.
Right? And you know, a personal experience of mine is when one of my kids were going through a difficult time, being very, very disrespectful, and I reached out for help. One of the things I heard that really impacted me and my life and his life is that, you know, if you have an abusive child, guess what? They are going to turn into an abusive adult. And that really hit me.
Yeah. It's scary, but it's the truth, really.
It is. It is the truth.
Yeah.
And you know what? That really, you know, it really shook me up to the point where I go, okay, no. He might be 16, but it's never too late. We are going to address this disrespectful behavior. So disrespect is not a behavior you can ignore at any time, whether your child is 2 years old, 5, 10, 15. No disrespect.
Okay, so you've recognized that maybe you've been ignoring these behaviors, and these are tough behaviors. And if you feel like you need help, we have an online community support group for our parents. Come join us. You can join us at www.parentingbeyondbehaviors.com. Check it out. We would love to help you.
And be sure to keep your ears open for our next video, where we are going to talk about those temper tantrums and how to handle them effectively.
And don't forget to like and to subscribe.